Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to the newest episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast.
Yes!
I am Austin. I'm a knockout. I've watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David. I'm a noob. I haven't watched all that much wrestling, to be honest. I'm sorry. I know. Boo. You get over it.
How dare you not be intimately familiar with the cultural, the truly American sport of professional wrestling?
Damn, you'd almost think that's like the whole conceit of this podcast.
A little bit, yeah. So for episode 5, and holy cow, we're on 5 episodes.
That's scary.
Yep. So for episode 5, we're going to kind of delve into non-WWE wrestling that still airs. Because I can't say this is the first time we've done non-WWE wrestling. We've done Lucha Underground. But, you know, this show still airs. In fact, literally, I hate to date our show in terms of when we film these things, but the newest episode of AEW Dynamite is on TV airing right now as we are streaming. But yeah, so tonight we are going to be watching the February 19th, 2020 episode of All Elite Wrestling's weekly show, Dynamite. So I have a lot of ground to cover tonight because I have to explain a lot of things. All Elite Wrestling is a super new wrestling company. It started, I believe, the press conference to announce itself was in January 2019. Its first pay-per-view was May 2019, which I bought. I think I bought all of their pay-per-views at this point. They're $50, but they're only $4 a year. So,
that's not bad.
Yeah. And then their first episode of Dynamite, it was October 2019. So they just had their 1-year anniversary on TV. So, All Elite Wrestling, why is it called that? It is called that because it's the brainchild of a group of professional wrestlers known as the Elite. The Elite, for the purposes of our conversation, is basically 5 guys. Excuse me. It is the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, and Hangman Adam Page. To give a quick recap of who those guys are, the Young Bucks are basically they're basically kind of innovators of tag team wrestling in the modern day. Like they're kind of like they're super into these like high flying, super athletic, tons of complicated moves kind of wrestlers, and they've kind of been one of the most popular tag teams in the world for quite a few years now, and they are definitely the most popular tag team that isn't in WWE. And they dress like glam rockers. They're pretty fun to watch. Kenny Omega, aka the Best Bout Machine, as he goes by, he got famous being the top gaijin or foreign wrestler in in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he put on some banger ass matches. I can't even describe it any other way. The dude is a giant dork who dresses like an anime villain, but when he gets it, and he talks like one too when he wants to. But when he gets it.
Please tell me we get some Omae Shinderu at some point.
No, he's not very weeby at this point in time. He's keeping it on the down low right now. But Nani? But but his matches are nuts and amazing, and he has a match tonight in this episode we're watching, and it's going to be great. Hangman Adam Page, his gimmick is a cowboy, right? And he's also my favorite wrestler right now. I'll go more when we talk about their storylines in AEW. I'll talk more about why he's my favorite. But he basically came into the group. He's part of Ring of Honor, which is one of the bigger independent wrestling companies. I say independent wrestling. They're not. They're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. Ew. But so like by technical definition, they're not really indie, but compared to WWE, everything looks like an indie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you're up against Vince McMahon, like it's like Disney, right? You
Yeah.
can't like that's like the pinnacle.
Yeah, everything looks much smaller in comparison. But he's a
But that's
really
kind of
talented.
cool though in its own right, I think.
But he's a pretty solid wrestler who kind of didn't always have the character down, but now he does. And again, can't wait to talk about it. Cody Rhodes, we saw him before when we watched the Monday Night Raw episode in 2013. Get ready to hear that a few times tonight, by the way. But basically, he is the son of legendary wrestler Dusty Rhodes, who we will almost certainly watch a match or something of him eventually. But he left WWE because he was creatively unfulfilled. He didn't like the direction they were taking his character, and he's wanted to go out. He wanted to strike it out on his own. And he was immensely successful at it, and he ended up kind of hooking up with the rest of the elite. They all joined together for the first time in New Japan Pro Wrestling as part of the larger Bullet Club faction, which in New Japan Pro Wrestling everyone is in factions, and the Bullet Club is the mostly foreigners group who kind of is there to be like dickhead foreigners. Like who like shit on Japanese wrestling culture. They're gonna cheat and they're gonna tell everyone to go fuck themselves. And what are you gonna do about it? We're Americans, putting our Americanness all over your Japanese wrestling. America. They're Merc. Except it's not that. It's not like America, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
Like here, we're the personification of gaudy American pro wrestling all over your Japanese wrestling.
Disrespect.
Yeah, eat a dick.
Yeah.
So they all of them left because of some contract. They left because of contractual kind of issues in New Japan. They weren't getting paid what they wanted to get paid, and they got an offer from Tony Khan, who is another billionaire. His father, Shad Khan, is like owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham FC soccer club, and basically they got a hook up on starting a wrestling company. And the reason he hooked up with them is because in 2018 there was a thing on where Cody Rhodes wanted to make a point about being able to sell out an independent wrestling show of 10,000 people, which is a huge milestone since WWE became the only major wrestling company in town in North America. That had never happened in a non-WWE show in like 20 years. And they pulled it off on an independent wrestling show, and it was kind of awesome. And that kind of was the catalyst for Tony Khan, who is a real life big time wrestling fan, to be like, hey guys, want to do this every week? And so you have All Elite Wrestling, and they kind of brand themselves a lot on being like the revolution. We're changing the world, and obviously that's a little bit of hyperbole and marketing. It's not they haven't really revolutionized anything, but it is a very enjoyable wrestling show on a week.
And it's nice to have a bigger thing that's legitimized outside of WWE.
Absolutely. It's better for everybody if there's more competition and there's more, in the eyes of the fans, a legitimate competitor to WWE, which hasn't happened since 2001 when WWE bought out their biggest rival at the time.
Yeah, make Vince put in some goddamn effort again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I want to talk, and it is kind of the most legitimate any wrestling company has been in a while in terms of their visibility. TNA, Total Nonstop Action, and yes, the name is a sex joke because fuck. Because Vince Russo is the one who came up with that name, and he thought it's funny, bro. It's TNA, bro. But they were on Spike TV And at one point they were like getting over 1 million viewers a week, and they were kind of seen as like, could they be a competitor to WWE? But they never really were able to make that, especially because the one time they tried to air at the same time as WWE, they got destroyed in viewership.
Yikes.
And they quietly moved their time slot back, and they're like, okay, and we are never considered the competitor again.
Hey.
But enough about Impact. We'll talk about, they've rebranded as Impact Wrestling. We'll talk about them, I'm sure, at some point. I like Impact and like watching their shows. But AEW, they air Wednesday nights on TNT, which is significant because TNT is where WWE's last big rival, WCW, aired Monday Nitro as a call.
Ooh.
We talked about a little bit about them last time.
Yep.
So it's like there's a real cool symbolism of like wrestling is back on TNT.
Yes, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And so they've been kind of going strong every week. And so we come now to February 19th, 2020. And something I think the interesting things to talk about with this is on two slots is that first, this is actually a super match heavy show. Like I didn't intend to do that. I kind of just picked. I just kind of went like, okay, what is the consensus of like the best episode of Dynamite in its 1 year history? And almost everyone's like, this one. This is the one.
I mean, no, I want to do more. I want to do a more match heavy thing. Like, I love kind of getting to do analysis of like the in ring work. Like, that's such a fun thing to watch. So yes,
yeah. This is a super like and it's kind of almost a culmination. It's not a culmination show because it's 10 days out from a pay-per-view, but a lot of stuff starts coming together for that pay-per-view in this episode.
So AEW does big pay-per-views too?
Yes, they do 4 a year.
Oh wait, you said that. I'm dumb. Yeah.
No.
Why did I not? Yeah.
So also, we're gonna do a little differently. Normally, the kind of the way I've been doing these storylines is kind of like almost a stream of consciousness, kind of like, okay, this thing, and then we're gonna do this thing and this thing. But it's AEW is kind of unique right now in that what they do is every single week they announce their match cards ahead of time. WWE doesn't do that. WWE will will advertise some stuff that they want you to like really pay attention to, but generally speaking, most of the show is unknown to the viewing audience before the show airs. It's WWE likes to kind of present this idea of literally, they've used this on air, is anything can happen in the WWE.
Oh my God.
So in that kind of way, they keep everyone in the dark. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen week. AEW takes a different approach of, we're going to announce that we're going to treat this more like an actual fight card or where going in like these are the 5 matches that are going to happen this week. Tune in if you want. Up front what you're going to
It's up to you.
Up to you. So I am going to follow that, going to kind of get us in that mindset of, I have the match card listed up for this episode of Dynamite, and I am going to just read off, and we're going to go from the storylines from there.
Yes.
I might skip around a little bit because AEW is really good, in my opinion, at like interweaving long-term stories, and I can't explain anything without explaining everything else. So let's just go ahead and start with the first match of the show is the AEW World Tag Team Title #1 Contendership Battle Royal. All right, which is fun because we've never talked about a Battle Royal before. We just didn't happen to know.
Yes.
So a battle royal is a concept where basically they stick a bunch of wrestlers in a ring. Usually it's 10, 20, 30, something like that. And the goal of the match is pretty simple. If you are thrown over the top rope, both feet touch the floor on the outside of the ring, you're out of the match. Like that's how you're out. And then last man, or in this case, last team standing wins.
Ironically, standing.
Yes. So Why are they doing a number one contendership battle royal? It's to determine who will compete for the World Tag Team Championships at their next pay-per-view, which is called Revolution, 10 days from the date of this show. Who are the tag team champions? The Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega. So the Elite, we're already going to talk about the storylines for the Elite. And right at this point in time, and we get to start with my man, Hangman Adam Page, a.k.a. the anxious millennial cowboy.
Yeah, you mentioned him. When I was listening to our first episode uploads, I remember I heard you mentioning him. I'm like, I wonder if we're ever gonna see that guy. So
yes, I'm very happy to talk about Hangman Adam Page. So his story with AEW is that he came in the first pay-per-view of the entire company's existence, he earned a shot at the AEW World Championship. And he was to fight Chris Jericho, who is the current AEW World Champion, and we also saw him last time in WWE.
Yep.
He's now we'll talk more about Jericho when we get to the match that involves his stuff. But obviously, as I just said, Hangman lost. And Hangman was really all in on this time. He's like, this is the match of my life. I have to win this match. He got attacked by Jericho in the build-up to it, and he had to get stitches in his eye, and he cut a promo where he ripped the stitches out of his eye to show how serious he was. It was awesome. And that was my moment that I learned to love Hangman Adam Page. It's before the current character, but like when he ripped the stitches out of his eye, I was like, okay, this guy's a badass. Very unsafe, but very cool visual. So he obviously, he puts he pins everything on this one match, and then he loses. So where he goes from here is basically the bottle.
The bottle.
As in he developed alcoholism.
Oh no!
It actually works really well, and I think part of the reason for that is because Hangman Page isn't an actual alcoholic in real life.
Okay, that's a lot more tasteful than how WWE's played that before.
I mean, not just WWE, but just in general in wrestling, most people who have substance abuse storylines are actual or recovering substance abusers.
Oh no.
So it feels very not good. But so basically what Hangman Adam Page, not just in the losing the match, but also there was a whole storyline bit where he asked the Young Bucks to second him in the match, like to come out and be like his supporters. And they're like, hey man, like we just had a match and we're kind of beat up. So like, sorry, but no, we can't. And it started this whole storyline of Hangman, because as I mentioned, the Young Bucks are kind of seen as like the world's greatest tag team in the eyes of many. And Kenny Omega is the best bout machine. Those are his three best friends, and Hangman is just Hangman. He's never won a world title. He's never won tag titles all over the world. He sees himself as kind of the odd man out, and he's super insecure about his place in his own friend group, and he's afraid that his friends don't see him. They see him as like the straggler, as the hanger-on to their success. No, yes, I was like, oh my god, I feel all the emotions, and
I can see why you love him so much.
No, yeah. So his insecurities and anxieties about his friendships, along with losing the world title match, caused him to start being more of an alcoholic. And now he like comes to the ring with a drink in his hand every single time.
I don't like that.
And Kenny Omega kind of hooks up with him as kind of like to be a tag team partner with him, be his friend. Because Kenny Omega, he kind of failed in his attempt to get to the world title at this point in time, and he's kind of like doesn't have anything to do. And I'm kind of placing some future context to this, and it's not fair. But the story would later kind of be that like Kenny Omega's kind of doing Hangman a favor. Like he's taking time out of his singles career to go be a tag team with Adam Page. to like hang out with him and kind of help him out. And the story of their team is basically when they're in sync, nobody can beat them. The problem is Hangman's hang-ups, they're not always in sync.
Oh no.
Nevertheless, they are the World Tag Team. They did win the World Tag Team Championships together. And now there's also some tension because, like, the first team in the Elite to become the AEW Tag Team Champions wasn't the Young Bucks. And the Young Bucks want the tag titles, even though their two best friends are the ones who have them. And Hangman's starting to get a little insecure about this, and he's also concerned that his own tag partner, if worse comes to worse, will be on their side, not his own.
Oh, no.
But all that aside, we are now at the tag team title #1 contendership battle royal. Who are the teams? Obviously, the Young Bucks are in it. The next team is the Hybrid 2, which is Angelico and Jack Evans. Basically, they're kind of two douchebags who dress like a Monster's energy drink can and are super athletic and kind of fun to watch, but they're not doing a whole lot at this point. Proud and Powerful, Ortiz and Santana. I'll talk more about them when we get to Jericho's thing because they're aligned with Jericho. The Best Friends, Bow Chicka, Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent. And the Best Friends, their basically thing is it's exactly what it says on the tin. Like they're just two dudes who are best friends with each other, and they're super. And they're
chilling in a hot tub.
Yeah, man, and they're also super. They're super comfortable in their own masculinity, and because they like hold hands on the way to the ring, and one of their big spots is like to hug in the middle of the match, in the middle of the ring. While everyone cheers, and it's great, and I hope they do. I hope they do it on this episode because I don't remember if they do or not. And and one of their other best friends is Orange Cassidy, who is another one of my favorites. Orange Cassidy is basically a wrestling savant, but he's super lazy. He just can't bring himself to care about actually trying. And so he's a comedy wrestler, and he's kind of hysterical. He'll do these like super fake kicks that don't do anything, and the other guy's just like, "What are you doing?" But the crowd will like cheer as if he was actually hitting them, and he does a whole bunch of shtick where he like sticks his hands in his jean pockets and then does moves with his hands in his pockets because he just don't care.
Oh my god!
He's somewhere between too lazy and too cool to care about trying in wrestling, and he's great.
Austin, this sounds amazing.
No, I love Orange Cassidy.
Oh my god! So much.
And then we have Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. They're two dudes who like to party. Their theme is very catchy. The Butcher and the Blade. That is their names. And I will explain more about them when we get to Cody Rhodes' story, which is also later, because they're involved in that.
Okay.
SCU, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. SCU is a funny one because SCU, called SoCal Uncensored, is basically they were heel, and their whole shtick was everywhere sucks except Southern California. Their catchphrase is, "This is the worst town I have ever been in." And then they just rag. And then they just rag on whatever city they're currently wrestling in for how much it sucks.
Oh my god.
But now they're kind of like lovable baby faces, so everybody just kind of like lovingly goes along with the fact that they're trashing the local city.
Wow.
Everyone is like, yeah, this is the worst town they've ever been in.
Oh my god.
No, they're fun. Strong Hearts, Shima, and T-Hawk, not much to them. They're basically, I will say that AEW has a partnership more or like had, considering the current circumstances. But they have a partnership with Oriental Wrestling, something I forget what the E stands for. It's basically a Chinese wrestling organization, and that is where Chima and T-Hawk come from. They're part-timers in AEW because obviously they have other commitments to the Chinese wrestling org.
Oh, naturally.
So they're just kind of here to like be a part. And I say had a partnership because obviously right now we're not getting a whole lot in the way of Chinese wrestlers.
Yeah.
You know, something might be happening right now, but that's like, they're not really showing up anymore. I don't know.
You mean the Beach gosh, what are the Game Grumps called? Is it the Beach Boys or is it the NSYNC?
Which one does
the Game Grumps has been referring to our current situation as either like the Beach Boys or the NSYNC reunion tour.
I think it's NSYNC. So yeah, the NSYNC reunion tour is.
The Backstreet Boys. The Backstreet Boys.
Oh, the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
The Backstreet Boys reunion tour has kept just those Chinese wrestlers out. Yeah, you know how it be.
Mm-hmm. I'm honestly kind of glad that we're not doing wrestling shows from like 2 months from now, because you're right. Neither AEW or WWE has stopped airing or producing wrestling content since the pandemic started.
Oh no.
And we could have an entire conversation about the ethics of that. But we don't have to, because this episode is a month before the pandemic started.
Hey, we don't have to get super heavy in this one, hopefully.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it.
We don't have to have last time when we had to do a 20-minute dirge on feminism because of yikes.
Yep. But anyway, back to the teams. The Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. Oh my God. I love them so much. The Jurassic Express. Jungle Boy is the actual real-life son of Jack Perry. And he is a mute jungle man. Or I guess a boy, but like he's mute and he's like a Tarzan. He's actually kind of fun, but it's such an out there character. Speaking of out there characters, Luchasaurus, he's a dinosaur. That's it. That's the gimmick. He's literally a dinosaur. He talks about how he's 65 million years old.
I thought we left this crap at the door with Lucha Underground.
Nope. You know, Luchasaurus is actually a character in Lucha Underground later in the later seasons. No, but we'll talk about him in Lucha Underground eventually, I guess.
Later, yeah.
But no, he also acknowledges his own real life history. Like he talks about how he has a master's degree, which is legit. He has a master's degree. Oh. So it's kind of funny. Because he doesn't dress like a dinosaur. He looks like a regular, like 6.5 foot tall, muscular wrestler dude. But he has a dinosaur. He has like a lizard mask that he wears. So he's a dinosaur.
What?
No, I also love Luchasaurus.
Oh, I can see why.
And here we are. Finally, I've been so excited to talk about them this whole time.
Oh, no.
The last team is involved is John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order.
The Dark Order.
Your shirt I have on right now, the podcasting viewing audience will never see it, but I am currently wearing my Dark Order t-shirt. Who is the Dark Order? They are a cult. They would take offense to being called a cult, but they're a cult. They take a lot of science. There's a lot of Scientology, references here.
Oh, well, that makes sense why they don't want to be called a cult then.
They don't appreciate it, but this is right now, this is before they get really good as a team. I've always kind of dug the Dark Order, but at this point in time, they weren't very popular because everyone kind of thought they took themselves a little too seriously.
So they got good during the pandemic?
Yes, they did. They got good during the pandemic because, first of all, they unveiled the leader of the cult. At this point in time, they're doing a storyline of the Exalted One is coming.
Oh, no.
But in about a month, they'll reveal the Exalted One. So I'm going to ignore that part for now. But the thing that got them really popular is they got funny on the internet because one of AEW's side projects is Being the Elite, which was started as like a wrestling travelers vlog on YouTube for the young bucks, and obviously the rest of the Elite. But then they started doing sketch comedy on Being the Elite, and it got really big, and it got kind of popular. And so now in AEW, they just do sketch comedy with AEW, and the Dark Order shined in this sketch comedy bits. Now they all have like distinctive characters. Like the Exalted One, their leader, he's obviously the abusive hard ass who doesn't like any of this dumb bullshit that his cult members are up to any given week. But then you have Evil Uno, that's his name, and
Evil Uno.
Okay, it makes sense if you understand that him and his tag team partner Stu Grayson were the Super Smash Brothers on the indie scene.
Grayson.
So he was Player Uno on the indies, but obviously we can't do that gimmick on national television. That's copyright. But now he's in an evil cult, so he's Evil Uno.
Oh my god!
But he's like the ultimate like kiss ass to the leader, but also he's beleaguered middle management.
Naturally.
He's great. Stu Grayson is like the violent sociopath that has to be reined in of the group.
Oh.
John Silver and Alex Reynolds are the recruitment specialists. They go around to all the members of the roster and like try to get them to join the Dark Order. And they have a few gags of this. Is like they'll hand people the Kool-Aid to drink. That's the signifier of joining the group, is drinking the Kool-Aid.
No.
But it's funny. It's funny. They offer to Orange.
I'm sure it is.
They offer to Orange Cassidy, and he like slowly knocks the Kool-Aid off the table while they're just yelling at him like, slowly. "Don't you do it! Don't you do it!"
Oh my god.
But they're also like super try hard. Like there's a gimmick in AEW, Darby Allin, who's like this like skater goth dude, and so like. When they try to recruit him, they show up and they're like, "Hey, Darby, I just got back from the Good Charlotte concert."
Oh my god.
They're super tryhard, and also John Silver is like, I'm pretty sure they've called him a muscle pervert.
A muscle pervert.
Yeah, because like he like constantly hits on other wrestlers for their nice muscles, and it's like. And it's almost like, dude, focus.
Sure.
Stop hitting.
Why not?
Stop hitting on the wrestlers and start focusing.
You know what? If the rallying cry against him doing that is focus, you idiot, rather than like what it was during Goldust's time, I'll take it.
Like no, there's nothing. They do not try to make it an anti-gay thing at all. It's completely the joke is like. He's like aggressively hitting on these guys, and it's like, dude,
you idiot!
You're trying to recruit for the Dark Order. What do you do? That's kind of the Dark Order. They've become like this wacky goofball group of guys. But at this point in time, they're still kind of self-serious, and I liked it, but a lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
And right now, their storyline is also the the Exalted One approaches, but also they're trying to recruit Christopher Daniels, who's part of SCU, and there's a lot of like hint. They're trying to like hint that Christopher Daniels is in the group because they're kind of relying on some old continuity. Because when Christopher Daniels wrestled earlier in his career, he led a cult. And he was called the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. And so they're kind of dropping hints that if you want to read into it, it can kind of feel like, are they hinting that Christopher Daniels is the leader of this group? And this is all like a long con? But for now, as it is, it's more of they're trying to recruit him into the group. He has cult experience.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. So that's the Battle Royal group, and that's also basically the tag team division in AEW. That covered almost all of the teams.
Yeah. Okay.
So, moving on to the next match is Shanna versus Chris Statlander. So I guess we're going to get to talk about the women's division. I'll be honest. One of the worst things about AEW now and then is the women's division, in that they don't really feature it a lot.
Oh.
They feature it significantly less than every other division, and it's obvious, and it's like, oh, why?
I mean, you know why, but like, oof.
It's a bit oofy, yeah. But anyway, right now the story of the division is they have a new champion. The last week's show on February 12th, Nyla Rose beat Riho. Nyla Rose is the native beast. She's known because she is Native American. And she is a giant hoss who can throw around all the other women like rag dolls.
Naturally.
Yeah, she just won the AEW Women's Championship off of Riho, who was kind of just one of the Japanese wrestlers that a lot the higher ups were a big fan of, and they kind of AEW tried to kind of make up for the fact they started out with they didn't start out with a lot of women who had televised wrestling experience and were kind of like experienced veterans. They kind of tried to replace that with featuring Japanese imports. And Riho was one of them. And she was the inaugural champion. But now Nyla Rose is the champion, and it's like, okay, now we got to figure out, like, where does the rest of the division stand? And that's where this match comes in. Is Shanna, who is Portugal's finest athlete. Yep, that's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, okay, fair.
And then Chris Statlander, who is an alien.
Oh my god.
Well, okay. You could read into it that it's a whole, she thinks she's an alien, and everyone just kind of is like, ha, 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 ha. Right?
Women, am I right?
Hey, man, hey. But Chris Statlander is fun. She either thinks she's an alien or is an alien, depending on how you want to look at it.
Fine.
And they're having a match. All right, Jon Moxley versus Jeff Cobb. This is going to cover the current AEW World Title scene. Right now, Chris Jericho is the world champion. His character is, remember how he was like a midlife rock star in WWE?
I do remember that.
What if he's even more of a midlife rock star in WWE? But But now they're kind of emphasizing the fact that, like, dude, you're 50 years old.
Oh, Jericho, no, Jericho.
And he's surrounded himself with the inner circle, which is aka a bunch of other wrestlers to do his dirty work and kind of be there to be his sycophants. Santana and Ortiz, as I mentioned earlier, are two of those wrestlers. They're the tag team of the group. You have Sammy Guevara, who's like the young, athletic guy of the group, and also the one to get his ass kicked so Chris Jericho doesn't have to. He's that mook in the group.
I get my ass kicked so you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a super common wrestling trope when you have these kind of groups. Is you have the one guy who, like, all the good guys get to kick his ass so that they don't have to kick, so they don't kick the asses of the important people, of the more important people.
The Chris Jericho who's somehow more important.
Well, yeah, he's the superstar, man. He's the former WWE World Champion. He's the important guy here. And then Jake Hager, who also used to be in WWE, he was Jack Swagger in the Real Americans gimmick, if we want to go back
no. Oh, no.
He doesn't do that now. Now he's just generic heavy.
Okay, that's better.
But that is what he was. That is what we have seen him before, from he doing the Real Americans shtick.
Fair.
And he's fighting Jon Moxley, who was Dean Ambrose in The Shield. So we've seen him before.
Hey.
Yeah. And so he's kind of like a man of the people ass kicker kind of character. And they've had a bit of a wild feud where Chris Jericho offered to bring Jon Moxley into the inner circle so that Moxley wouldn't go after Jericho in the world title. And he goes to all the trouble to, like, recruit him, and he's like, here, you, this car. And it's like, I don't remember what the model of the car is, but to put it in, this is a billionaire's car. It's Tony Khan's car that they used for this gag. If you want an idea,
God.
like, this is a rich guy car.
Okay.
And Moxley, like, he rejects the group, but not before he takes the keys and steals the car.
Of course, naturally.
It's
I
great.
mean, you gotta.
Yeah. So now Jericho is like, you have made an enemy for life.
You just made an enemy for life.
I mean, he did, because now they do a very old school, because then they do a very old school wrestling trope where Jericho puts Moxley's eye out. He takes a spike off of his leather jacket and stabs Moxley in the eye.
Jesus.
And for the most of the rest of the feud, he wears an eye patch.
Of course he does.
To sell the idea that he'd lost his sight. And Moxley gets revenge by taking out Santana's eye in a match. He uses his car keys to key his eye out.
Oh my God.
So now Santana's without an eye. And so now we're at the point of where Jericho's master plan is to hire a mercenary, Jeff Cobb, who is a pro wrestler who is not with AEW, still isn't. I don't believe he ended up signing. But he was kind of just come in as this one-off appearance just to beat up Moxley. The idea being he has a world title match with Jon Moxley in 10 days. I'm going to have Cobb beat the crap out of him so he's not healthy enough to be able to beat me when the time comes. And Cobb is kind of an athletic freak in that he's this like, he's like a massive dude and he can throw around everybody. He has legit amateur wrestling background and he is a strong boy. It's not going to seem as good because Moxley is smaller than Cobb, but Cobb can throw around dudes bigger than him. And he's kind of impressive to watch when he's throwing around big guys.
Yeah.
So that's kind of this match is Jericho paying off Cobb to beat up Moxley so that Moxley's too injured to beat Jericho later.
It's the circle of shit.
And then, the AEW World Tag Team title match. Not only are we going to find out who the number one contenders are tonight, we're also going to figure out who's going to be the champion going into the pay-per-view. Obviously, we have Hangman and Kenny Omega are the tag team champions, and their opponents, the Lucha Bros, aka Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix. Okay. All right. So to set up them, remember how I said that when we were talking about Lucha Underground, how like Prince Puma is super impressive, but he's not the most physically athletic freak of nature on this show.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going to meet the one who is. That would be Rey Fenix.
Oh, yes.
I have been watching wrestling for years, and I have never seen somebody make the most insane athletic feats look so natural and so easy like Rey Fenix.
Oh, that's cool.
He's nuts. Pentagon Jr. is then also my favorite wrestler in all of Lucha Underground. And I can't really explain why because I want to save that for Lucha Underground.
I can appreciate that.
But I will say that he looks like a pissed off ninja skeleton man, and he will kick the shit out of you. And like that's kind of the shtick with them is they're legitimate brothers, and Rey Fenix is the high flying flippy one, and Pentagon Jr. is the will just straight up kick your ass one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and so they have the tag team title match with Hangman and Kenny Omega, and the question is who's going to be the tag team champions going into the next pay-per-view.
All right.
And then finally, the main event, a steel cage match between Cody. Cody.
I haven't gotten this cage match yet.
No, he had a cage match too. Is Cody? That's Cody Rhodes. Basically, until like 2 weeks ago, he went by Cody instead of Cody Rhodes to avoid any legal issues with WWE about copyright trademarks and all that shit. Oof. And he's taking on Wardlow. Okay, so Wardlow is the paid bodyguard of MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I think you know a little bit about him because you watched Super Eye Patch Wolf's video about wrestling heels, right?
Yeah, yes, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember which Super iPad. So I know I watched the New Japan episode, and I'm pretty sure I watched the heel episode too.
Okay, because MJF is basically the newest iteration of spoiled rich kid asshole thinks he's better than everybody because he's a spoiled rich kid.
Yeah.
And so him and Cody are in a feud right now. And that's a bit of another long story too. Is basically they started AEW as friends, but also everybody understands that MJF is a piece of shit and will probably turn on Cody. So it's really a question of when is he gonna turn on Cody?
Not if, but when.
When is it gonna? And the when was their last pay-per-view in November 2019, where Cody was in a world title match with Chris Jericho, and Cody was like, I'm so confident that I need this world title that I'm going to make it a stipulation that if I lose this match, I never compete for the world title ever again.
Holy shit.
So the stakes are high, and the match ends when MJF throws in the towel on behalf of Cody.
Oh no.
And it's then revealed that he did that because it was all part of a long con on Cody.
Oh no.
So he betrayed Cody, and it's all kind of like you held me back, you held me down, and it's all obviously a bunch of bullshit. But Cody has the righteous anger. And so MJF did another. This is a bit of an old school wrestling kind of tactic. Cody Rhodes is clearly a big fan of the 80s Southern wrestling that his dad did because he loves to bring these tropes into his own storylines. But basically, MJF put down the stipulations of you can have a match with me at Revolution if you do 3 things. The first thing was you're not allowed to touch me until the pay-per-view. And so he spent most of the last few weeks trying to get a rise out of Cody, push Cody to throw a swing a fist at him, because if he does, oops, well, too bad. You don't get your match with me. And that's where the Butcher and the Blade came in before. Butcher and the Blade, their gimmick is, right now there's kind of mercenaries that have an actual butcher shop. They did a vignette on this. But they also are getting paid by MJF to rough up the other members of the Elite. They beat up the Young Bucks a lot. And they're aesthetically pretty cool. The Blade wears a gimp mask to the ring, and the Butcher wears a monocle and looks like if Teddy Roosevelt got tatted up and became a pro wrestler.
That's amazing.
No, the Butcher is the coolest looking dude. But anyway, he pays the Butcher and the Blade to beat up Cody's friends. That doesn't work. Which leads into stipulation number 2. Is Cody had to let MJF whip him with a belt live on TV.
What?
Like that's the real old school Southern wrestling thing. Is
kinky.
Loser gets whipped with a belt. And so they do a whole this is like the main event of the last show they did 2 week shows ago, where of Cody just standing in the ring and has to let MJF whip him with a belt 10 times. And the whole time MJF is just taunting him, yelling at him, trying to get a rise out of him or make him give up, because either way that would work. Either way, whether Cody gets mad and tries to hit him, or Cody can't take the pain anymore, doesn't matter. Either way, MJF gets out of the match, which is like the real story here, is that he's putting all these obstacles in front of Cody to he's being a cowardly heel about it. He's trying to avoid he's making Cody have to keep down his righteous babyface fury for vengeance.
I mean, it falls along the line of like a lot of the tropes a lot of the heel tropes we've seen past, in our earlier episodes about the duplicitous cheating heel that just will do anything to not have to actually fight.
No, yeah, and so But Cody, of course, survives the 10 lashes with the belt. And the segment kind of has a funny end in the sense that, like, because Cody finishes the 10 off, and he even by the end is like, he's like standing up triumphant, as if that, like, beating me with a belt didn't tear me down, it only made me stronger, kind of a thing. So MJF's response is he kicked Cody in the balls and ran away. He's like, okay, this didn't work the way I wanted it to, so bam. All right, I'm leaving now. Goodbye.
Oh, hey, fuck you.
But now we come to the third and final stipulation. Cody has to beat Wardlow in a steel cage match. This was it. If Cody wins, he gets a match with MJF.
Yes.
So it's all on the line now. And so yeah, I think that covers everything. That's our matches for the night. I forgot. Oh shit, I did forget one thing because one of the right now they're doing a storyline in the women's division where she's not really wrestling very much, but she's like doing a guest commentator spot on this episode. So I have to mention her is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. As the name, you can probably guess what her character is. She's a dentist.
DMD?
Yeah, that's the official that's like the whatever the official certification is DMD.
I thought that was DDS. Now
I don't remember. Okay. I don't remember. Whatever. Point being, she's a dentist. And it's kind of funny because they initially brought her in to kind of be like a face of the women's division good guy, and nobody liked it and nobody cared. And so they've kind of in the last few weeks pivoted to make her a heel character where it's all about like, she's like, I'm a wrestler and a dentist. And it's very much I'm blessing you with my appearance because I could go be a dentist. I have a dentist practice. But with you schlubs.
I gotta say, I am slightly disappointed that they're not doing a thing with her that's like Lady Orvin Scrivello from Little Shop. Like, that'd be so much fun to have just like a complete like sadist heel dentist character.
That would be fun. I mean, I guess in the previous episode, she like had a match. She did have a match, and after the match, she like curb stomped her opponent and in kayfabe knocked her teeth out.
Oh shit!
So there's that, but it's this is like a one-time thing, and like the next week, she's like, when trying to explain her actions, she's like, during the match, I saw that she basically plays it off like during the match, she saw that your opponent had some issues with her teeth. So like she gave her free dental work because I'm just that nice of a person.
Oh no.
No, Britt Baker is incredible. So she does appear on this episode, and I forgot to mention her. But so that covers everything. We've gone through the AEW Dynamite match card for February 19th, and we are ready to roll.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I am very excited for this episode because it is pretty great.
Yes.
All right, and we will see you guys in the back half. Back with the back half. All right, we are just finished our first episode of AEW Dynamite, February 19th, 2020. What a show.
Oh my god, that was like unbelievably good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I remember it being really good, but it's very fun to get a rewatch it again because it was just as good as I remember.
Yeah, oh my god. Every little thing about it was mm-hmm. I had so much fun with that, dude.
Mm-hmm. So where do we want to start with this?
I don't even know. I think what kind of was on my mind watching this whole thing was the vibe that it gave me, because this contemporary era whatever you know, gave me similar vibes as the very first episode we watched. It also felt markedly different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that, and I was trying to put my finger on why. And I think part of it is like the structure too. Like this was a very match heavy show. This wasn't
Yeah.
like going hard on story. This wasn't, you didn't have like a lot of backstage shenanigans. You didn't have like, this was like a kind of Frankenstein marriage between the 80s WWF episode we watched and the 2013 WWE. And I think I'm thinking about this, and it may sound really dumb and corny, but I think the best way to describe this was it was almost like really just comfy to watch. Like this felt like this. Watching certain things, I kind of get this feeling deep within me of like this just feels comfortable and safe. Like this just feels like something I can put on and feel at home in and feel a little bit okay about everything watching. And that's just kind of what this was. There was something about it. The stylistic differences they take to how WWE tends to do things. It's got this slightly more like simplistic vibe. Like it doesn't feel like it carries a lot of the weight that WWE does. This feels very much like we are coming out here to do our thing. We don't have the burden of all this like history and context, whatever. We're just here to have fun. Come have some fun with us. And I think it achieved that in with flying colors.
Yeah, it's definitely feels a little more. I felt AEW feels not necessarily laid back in the sense. I think it still carries a lot of the same like dramatic weight that WWE does at its best. But yeah, it doesn't have this same like gravitas of all these decades of history, and it kind of is very fun in that this is an upstart new thing kind of way.
Well, yeah, because it seems like they don't feel burdened by certain expectations is the big thing. Like they're able to throw out things like a dude who's a dinosaur, or like it feels like this really fun melting pot of all of these different aspects of wrestling that we've explored so far, and the deftness with which it handles and juggles all those things without making any of it feel too ridiculous or too forced, or even like too intense in like all the stuff it's trying to throw at you. It's frankly astounding to me. And it does give it this really nice feel. And I honestly think, like kudos to you for your episode pick here. Like starting off with that giant match. It was like this parade of all the highlight personalities just kind of all mingling together, and it didn't feel too crazy, it didn't feel too chaotic, it didn't feel too stressful. It all just kind of like happened, and it just it felt more than anything we watched so far like I was watching like just a regular sporting event and laying back and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take too much credit for this. I went to the interwebs for this to kind of figure it out. But I mean, even without, even if I didn't look up help for it, and I just kind of had to pick one for myself. I probably still would have picked the episode where Cody jumps off the steel cage. Just skip to the end.
Oh my god!
But because like that was the episode. That's kind of like the episode during one of AEW's best periods of their entire existence at this point.
Which is weird to say because it's been a short existence thus far.
Yes,
but I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, but yeah, that opening match was kind of the best kind of battle royal for me. In that, like, okay, I'm gonna. I don't know when or if we'll cover other battle royals, but kind of a big problem I have with battle royals in general is that they can all kind of blend together a little bit in your head. In that, and it's not always the most exciting to watch because by nature of the match, because there's a lot of people there, and the goal of the match is pretty simple: just throw the guy out. It can kind of devolve into a lot of like punch, kick, kick. Let's try to push you over the rope until it's time for us to do a thing, that a big important moment in the match. But I think this match did a really good job of staying like engaging, even though that, and kind of fun to watch. And all the story beats in between were throughout the match were fun, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, it did a really good job at like at kind of zooming in as the match progressed. Like when it started off, obviously, it's the big battle royal, everybody's in, so they're just kind of like pulling out and letting it all happen. But as it went forward, we got to see more specific snapshots of what was going on. We got to see Luchasaurus getting toppled over the rope. We got to see things with the Young Bucks just going hard toward the end. We got to see some highlight. The Dark Legion was in there, right?
The Dark Order, yes. Their secondary team of John Silver and Alex Reynolds got to wrestle that match, while Stu Grayson and Evil Uno hung out on the outside and just kind of like distracted people.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then we had what's his face showing up? Lazy Dude.
Orange Cassidy. Match? Yes, it was Orange Cassidy, because he was best friends and like sort of try to catch his friends, but also do it in the laziest way possible.
Dude, that was so iconic, though. I like it was just like, it was fun. It felt purely fun. And who are the two kind of final guys standing against Young Bucks?
That was Santana and Ortiz of the Inner Circle.
Okay, yeah, the inner circle guys. I kept like referring to them as like LMFAO in my head.
I see the comparison. I see that visually. I mean,
it's not
Ortiz with his like big hair.
That's not even like a fair comparison to make, because it's not like ginger. It's not like a ginger afro like Red Foo had. But I felt bad. That's how I was referring to them. Yeah, but Santana and Ortiz, and they put up a good fight too. Like they didn't feel like, it was really interesting because like they didn't look to me like major players. Like they didn't have the look of major players to me. But they went hard, and it did suck me in. And I think something I noticed too broadly throughout this episode. This is kind of the most I've kind of out loud exclaimed at an episode so far. Like I did a lot with the 90s episode too, like kind of like, oh, that was brutal. Oh man, that hit was hard. But here, there was just a lot of moments where I felt really anchored to the story, despite being like brand new to everything. And I think it's because there's a certain like accessibility in its simplicity.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think AEW does a pretty good job of being pretty accessible and kind of easy to get into. And it kind of helps that they do have a lot of characters that are like kind of exactly what they look like they are.
Yeah. I mean their aesthetic, they have this really nice element to their aesthetic that I don't know what it is, if they're just really good at like distilling character traits down, or being good with like colors. I don't know, something about it, like everything felt like you could look at it and get a sense of what the person was and what they were all about.
If I had to like make some guesses about how that would work, I would think it's a lot of it is the fact that like it's AEW is very much feels more like an indie company would feel. It's not. It's obviously not an indie wrestling company, but it is run by and dominated by, in their roster, a lot of guys who have a lot of experience on the indie wrestling scene, and a lot of their character aesthetics, if not straight up characters, comes from the indies. And so I think that kind of benefits it in a way, because when you're an indie wrestler, we never really talked deeply into the differences, but like the whole idea of like how television wrestling TV is constructed doesn't exist on the indies. Like you can't have these like lengthy Shakespearean monologues or these backstage hijinks, because you don't have a TV deal to kind of show off that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like, it is primarily just straight up matches, and you kind of have to. And if at like obviously now in the age of social media on the indie scene, you can further storyline stuff on
Yeah.
social media. But in terms of like what happens on the show and indie shows, it's pretty much just like match, 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 match. And so you kind of have to be able to convey your like character and personality only through your own appearance and physical expressions and body language. You don't have the ability to just kind of like give paragraphs of a speech that like, okay, this is what this guy's all about.
Which it almost seems to me as if like I don't know if they just like have a really good team for this or if it's just like pure blind luck, but every single person in there I think has showed off some phenomenal acting chops. Like I felt here a lot more like um solid, understandable and like easily definable characters come across with half these people who I did not hear speak a word.
Mm-hmm.
Like at first glance, you were just able to like the way they carried themselves and the way they used their faces and the way they fought. I think AEW has done a fantastic job of casting very physically gifted fighters, not just as wrestlers, but as performers who seem to have a sense about themselves about how to convey ideas with just their body, and it's a talent to be sure, and I think an underappreciated one, so one that I definitely want to give a lot of kudos to as we kind of talk about this.
And it's definitely they have an incredibly talented roster of guys.
Oh my
Like,
god!
it is like they have a very they've got a lot of guys who are very very good at their job.
I mean, we saw up-teen examples of that in this episode, and in all different ways too. Like that's the other cool thing. None of this felt like stuff that like again didn't blend together. You have it displayed in beautiful ways. Like I keep like name dropping Luchasaurus just because he's so easy to like stick in your mind. But
Oh
like
yeah, he is. He's 6'6" or something like that. He is jacked with giant tattoos all over him, but then also he wears this
a dinosaur
lizard
mask.
mask,
Yeah,
and
but
he also like does karate kicks really well.
yeah, he does. He does. But he uses his stature very well, and so he has great physicality about him where he stalks about, which is different than the Young Bucks who just go ham on everything, which is different than like Santana and Ortiz who are almost kind of like they almost felt like slightly reminiscent of an evolved form of like the Heart Foundation to me, where like they gave off kind of like evil henchman vibes, but like
Which
it was
was kind
more.
of their role of this in the inner circle is to be
Yeah,
a evil henchman to Jericho.
but it didn't feel cartoony though. That was the nice thing. It felt like they were side characters, but it felt like they were side characters who could kick your ass if you met them in a dark alley. Like they were legitimately intimidating, and I legitimately was like felt like they were a threat to the Young Bucks. Now I wasn't sure who was going to emerge victorious there.
Yeah,
I thought for sure the Young Bucks were kind of doomed. Or you have,
and that was kind of the largest story of the match is early in the match, Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks gets eliminated, and that means they're still in it. Both guys have to go out, but suddenly Matt Jackson is alone in the ring, and by the end, he's alone with 2 or 3 other heel wrestlers.
yeah.
He's got to fight them all off by himself.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or like even something like the Mox fight, where you have Mox like getting thrown around, but dude was getting thrown around in a way that like it felt real. I was like, dang, this guy's just, like I made a comment to you as we were watching, like oh man, this guy's getting knocked around like a bitch. It felt convincing to me. Or obviously you have that final match between
Cody and Wardlow. Yeah.
yeah. Where I mean you just have Wardlow the Beast and Cody like Cody pulling off these insane aerials, or you have the Lucha Brothers and fucking
Hangman and Kenny, yeah.
Paige and Kenny, um, where they were all just beautiful showmanship in some way or other. I mean, I have to commend AEW for just how strong they are, like this early on in their lives.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. They've kind of like hit the ground running in terms of like they immediately really put things together really well. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like this is a wrestling company that has existed for, at this point of the show, is they've existed for 9 months, but they've only been on national television for about 4 months.
Dang. I mean, and it's impressive. Like they've adjusted as well as they have, as quickly as they have.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too was like I felt drawn into these characters in a really unique way. Like more than anything else we've watched so far, like they felt real to me. I'm trying to, and I've been kind of trying to think about like it felt very aesthetically similar to the 2013 WWE episode we watched. But I was trying to think like what's the dividing factor? What's like the thing that for some reason I'm latching on ever so slightly more to these guys than I was with WWE. And I feel like it is that kind of like grittiness of the indie vibes. Like these feel like it's really funny in these people being, you know, slightly clearly like either to say they feel like slightly more amateur, or to say they don't feel like as prestigious. That lends this credibility to them. That even though I know like these are people playing characters, I think there's something in my mind saying like, yeah, but they can't be that much of characters, or they can't be it's not like I'm watching A-lister John Cena go out and bloviate or whatever. I'm watching Kyla Rose just like beast out, and I know she's playing a character, but she just feels legit to me, and I'm just like, damn, I'm into this.
Yeah, I could have a guess on that, and I don't want to. I don't like put it. It feels weird to say that I don't like to put too much of my own bias in this show, but in the sense that like I have as being a fan of 8 years, I have very defined wrestling opinions. TM, and. But I don't like I hate the idea of like me inserting all of my opinions in it and kind of like glomming them onto you, and like I want like your
no please I want your insight.
But a kind of thing that I think that might help with this kind of vibe of like feeling a little more real is this idea of the script. And I guess it doesn't work quite in this episode because nobody really cuts a promo except Nyla Rose. But kind of this it's kind of well said that in WWE, especially in now, they're very tightly scripted. It's a very tightly scripted show. Like they write out word for word what everybody's got to say, and they have to memorize. It's that's like any other TV show. But that's not how wrestling usually works, historically speaking. Yeah. Like normally how it goes is like you have someone like a booker like Vince McMahon or whoever, and they'll be like, okay, here's this is going to happen. But they don't really blot out the details. It might be like, okay, Randy Savage, you're going to cut a promo on Honky Tonk Man and you got 2 minutes. And they might give a little bit about like what we want you to talk about. Like he might talk about like how he's insulting Elizabeth or whatever, but otherwise they don't really they wouldn't tell Macho Man what to say. He'd have Macho Man would have to like come up with himself and how he thinks his character would do it. It's very not improv necessarily, but it's kind of like you make the character your own, and you bring your own voice to it as best you think you should. And AEW does
No, I
does
think
that.
I agree with that.
The AEW doesn't tightly script. I don't know if they do have scripts for anybody. If I had to guess, I would say that maybe if someone's not quite comfortable coming up with their own stuff, that they can kind of be guided along by somebody. But it is not the same. It is not tightly scripted in the same way. And for guys who are veterans, who are like very comfortable coming up with their own stuff, that's what they're doing. They're not being told by anybody, this is what you got to say. Like, you're going to come up with your own stuff. So I think that lends to this of making it feel a little easy. It makes it feel a little more real, because the wrestlers themselves are the ones who are kind of crafting these characters. They have, and instead of it being like a writer. And
yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like these are extensions of them in some way, or at the very least, like, these are characters that come naturally to them. And I'm just sitting here like, everybody's clearly having like such a good time. Like, it feels like everybody feels in control of what they're playing, basically. It doesn't feel like as puppet master controlled from the top. It feels like everyone's just kind of like going out there and doing their thing, and I'm just over here rooting for, like, man, y'all are having so much fun. You go you.
Yeah, and I do think that comes from the kind of the difference, a difference between, this is what your character is, and this is what he's going to say, versus, okay, what would your character say? What is he going to do?
How can you define that sort of thing for yourself?
Yeah, and that's just, I think, a good acting practice, really, as an amateur actor, a community theater actor myself.
I mean, no, absolutely, and I mean, kind of to compare this to community theater, I guess this would be more like regional theater. If WWE is like the proverbial Broadway, there's something about it that's like, it's a little more raw, but that's, I don't want to, I kind of hesitate to say raw, because that sounds so like kind of cliche and almost condescending, but like,
and also WWE has a show called Raw.
That's hey, but
anyway.
Like but like that sort of vibe carries a certain charm about it, of like, this isn't like the most like Mickey Mouse sanitized version of the product. This is people coming together and doing their best to put on a show. Like, it feels like it has a face to it, and I think that makes it a lot more engaging. So as I'm sitting there watching that battle royale, I'm already like kind of noticing myself like really drawn in, and yeah, like thinking for one of the first times really about, like, damn, what is this outcome going to be? I actively would like to know.
Yes.
And it stayed that way, and it stayed that way the whole time. I mean, like, I was giving you a good laugh yesterday, as I was just like, I want Kyler Rose to step on me. And like, for as much as I was playing that up, and like, because it was funny, and I like saying shit like that, like, there is an element of that that's legit, because I'm just like, man, this is a legit kind of like intimidating person, and she feels real, and that's really hot. And I'm like, dang, I'm rooting for this heel. Like, I don't give a shit that she's a heel. She's a good, like, this is the first heel I've looked at where I'm like, I don't give a shit that you're a heel. You're a good guy in my heart.
Yes, this is a feeling. This is a common dilemma in the wrestling fandom, but not of like cheering the bad guys. And that's a whole discourse unto its own about that. And I don't really know if we need to get into any of it, because I don't know if any of it's super relevant to talk about in this episode. I mean, I guess I could say is that I guess the most relevant thing is, I think, a lot of motivation for people to like cheer the heels. I know for some people they want to paint as kind of like intentionally contrarian, especially in a WWE environment where WWE almost kind of likes to paint itself like against as an antagonist to their own fandom, but
Yeah.
But I really do think that a lot of it is the fact that heel work is that heels can be extremely engaging characters themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and more so than people following what is the wanting to follow the good guy because he or she is morally upstanding, which is the goal, I guess, is that people are sometimes more drawn to just who's the more compelling character, and that
Yeah.
sometimes is the heel.
Yeah, no. But this felt different for me than like rooting for bad guys has for me in the past. Like you know me, I love my villains. I love playing villains. I love cheering on the villain. I love standing the villain, whatever. But like this was kind of the rare, like I said, the rare instance of I was just into her from the get go before I fully conceptualized that she was a heel,
Mm-hmm.
and that those few like that was like a minute before, like that was like a minute into her promo, just like a minute's worth of kind of content there, and that was enough to kind of win me over. And then when I realized she was supposed to be heel, I'm like, well, fuck that, I'm not rooting against you,
Who
you seem
cares?
awesome. like
No.
like there was no like this wasn't even me like trying to be contrarian or trying to be
Mhm.
like root for the bad guys because it's fun to be evil. This is just
Mhm.
like, no, you're cool. I'm on your side, dude. That is a thing that like not even like the greatest like villains can accomplish for me a lot of the time. So like
Mhm.
that's almost an impressive feat in and of itself. And again, I think speaks really well to the vibe that they're able to establish that can really engage their VIP with just how well they're able to present these characters as archetypes
Mhm.
and as just kind of engaging personalities from the first.
Which I think that's a good way to talk into is kind of like we've kind of talked through most of the first match of the battle royal. The second match and
Mm-hmm.
like and the interview and the promo afterwards is kind of like an intro through a lot of the major players in the women's division at this point in time,
Yeah.
and they're all very different people. Is
Yeah.
is and they're all and most of them are pretty engaged. I think are engaging characters, which is a
I
first
would
for
say
us on
so.
this show. We have just happened to not really watch an era of time where women's wrestling is good.
Yeah, not yet anyway.
There's admittedly there's not a North America. There's not a lot of times where you can say
I
that it's
mean, what
good.
the golden age was 2014 to what? Like
Like
18?
now, like
Oh, okay.
well, I
That's
guess now it's still, but like the peak is yeah, 2014 to now in WWE is the best time for women's wrestling. So, and there are other eras where there are like pockets of like good, but this is really the best era for consistently good across the whole division kind of thing.
yeah.
And in AEW, yeah, so in AEW tonight we had Nyla Rose, who is the champion and is just kind of like she's the physically biggest and strongest in the division and is happy to bully everyone else around because of that.
Yes.
Um
Mom.
anyway,
Sorry.
um it's no, it's this is great content. We have Riho, who we got a little bit of her in the back out in the the video package explaining how Nyla Rose won the title. The
Yes.
former champion Riho, who is just kind of like like the plucky, not really an underdog. She's a 13-year veteran. It's not really an underdog at that point.
Hmm.
But she's kind of like the kind of like the just morally good person.
Yeah.
She's just the good. She's just a good guy, and that's fine. And that's fine. Like you don't always need to be more. You don't always need to be more complicated than that.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're talking about ingenious and its simplicity is kind of seems to be the theme of this episode. So, like, sure.
Yeah. We got Chris Statlander, who is an alien, and Boot Stuff.
Yes.
Okay, I want to say that I feel like I don't know if it was like if it was like a groaning way or like a laughing along kind of way, but I feel like when I was going through these characters in the first half, like it kind of got this reaction of like from you, and I was like, I don't know if you're going to be into it or not, and I feel like for most of those characters that I wasn't sure how you were going to react to, you did end up getting really into it.
Well, yeah, like,
You
well,
actually saw it in
like,
action.
because the way you describe some of these, I'm like, this sounds like it belongs on Lucha Underground, where I'd be super into it, but like here, really, this is supposed to be like my chill, like, indie vibe thing, where we're not going super weird on the characters, and like we're not trying to force any like really dumb shit that like WWE would pull of like this is a supernatural being and you just have to live with that, motherfucker. But again, I think they captured something about not focusing so much on the fact that they were like these ridiculous outlandish characters, but instead using those as like framing devices to build an accessible archetype,
Mhm.
where you were able to totally get on board with it,
Mhm.
just by virtue of how they presented themselves, without them having to force all this weird kind of like backstory shit into it.
Mhm.
That's kind of why I was groaning, and that's why it was able to win me over, because it didn't do the thing that I would expect them to do with
Yeah,
characters like that.
because I felt like Chris Statlander as the alien is kind of like the peak example of that.
Hmm.
Because I felt like by the end you were really into
Oh
Statlander.
my god, I love Statlander. Statlander's great, dude.
She is fantastic.
I'm
I
so
love
happy she won.
uh-huh. And like she just kind of makes it work even if the gimmick is silly. Like it's implied that she just thinks she's an alien. It's implied that she's not an alien, of course. That she just
Yeah.
thinks she is. But she
Because
just you just
yeah.
totally buy into this that she's like kind of airheadedy in that way that you are when you believe you're an alien who crash landed on Earth. But but she's like able to be like a really like sympathetic good guy character anyway.
Well, yeah, and there's this certain charm about her, just kind of playing at this almost like edgelordy. I don't talk because I'm an alien. I'm just here to do fight.
I
Uh,
I boop you on the nose
I boop you on the nose.
because I am an alien who does not know human cultural things.
I know. It's simultaneously like it they're like she's clearly going for like some sort of like intimidation factor with like the acting weird,
Mm-hmm.
um but it doesn't feel like she or the show are remotely taking it like too seriously. It just all feels like part of the fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think part of the thing with like WWE that like I can struggle with sometimes is like it feels like it gets so bogged down in its own self-importance,
Mm-hmm.
whereas like whereas this feels like this feels like I don't want to say a cartoon come to life,
Mm-hmm.
um but something akin to that, um like these feel like pop art drawings, um that were brought into three dimensions and made to fit the real world seamlessly,
Mm-hmm.
um and and but it also seems aware of the fact that they started out as pop art drawings, um, and doesn't then try to like grimdark them into the ground or whatever. It's just fun, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what works about it. It's just fun.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of not too grim, dark, but fun, Darby Allen. But now,
Darby was great, dude.
yeah, I know.
Darby, oh my
I,
god.
I think I didn't bring him up in the first half because I didn't remember that he was a part of this episode.
Oh my
But
god.
Darby Allen is kind of hysterical to. He's kind of amazing. It's like okay, okay. I'm going to say that like this. Is it like it feels like there are multiple characters in AEW that kind of fit my very particular brand of millennial aesthetic.
Yes. Yeah.
One
Yeah. Yeah.
one of them is Hangman, who is
Yeah.
the insecure, depressed cowboy. Then you have Orange Cassidy, who's he does the bare minimum for this shit because it's just a job, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have Darby Allin, who like has half of his face painted up skeletal style.
Yes.
He has the purest goth aesthetic. Where he comes to the ring on riding a skateboard that he then uses as a weapon.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's literally like it's them just throwing together all these hodgepodges of cliches. But that's the cool thing is it never feels condescending. It feels in touch because I think they're really good at not making any of their concepts feel forced. And God, I hope it stays that way because it feels really cool to have these characters that if they were done remotely wrong could just all come off as how do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah, and just very cringe. It could be a lot more cringe than it is.
But Darby, unironically, kind of felt like a badass, and I felt really silly like thinking this and saying this until you said what you said about like appealing to your very civic millennial vibe, because I think there was something there that I was trying to grasp at, but I couldn't put words to. But like when Darby showed up, which and again. For the woke listener out there, this is a very silly thing to say as like a skinny, straight, like cis white dude, who can see himself in so many like different properties. But like WWE, the world of professional wrestling, is a world of very jacked dudes, and I am not a very jacked dude, and I am not very much like the manly man's man or anything like that. But then Darby showed up, and it's like, fuck, that's my aesthetic. Like, he's this lanky dude in like some black suit ass get up, half of his face painted like Jack goddamn Skellington.
I knew you would see it like that. That would be the way you looking at it.
Oh, you know me so well. This is why you're my buddy.
This would be like, oh, it's Jack Skellington. Like, of course.
I mean, fuck off. But no, it's. And I just identified with it immediately. I'm like, that's me. That's me in a wrestling ring. Holy shit. And it felt so cool.
Yeah, I know. And that you did kind of touch on something that's kind of another interesting difference. And it's not really intentional, I don't think. It's more of just like the state of being of wrestling is that basically like WWE has always been a very, especially under Vince McMahon, it's always been a body aesthetic kind of thing. Like, Vince McMahon has always loved the idea of jacked bodybuilder-esque dudes punching each other, and I'm not gonna knock that at all because like results speak for themselves on that.
It works for a reason.
Yeah, but that is the very specific aesthetic that WWE goes for, and it's only very recently that we've been able to see significant success from guys who don't have that kind of body shape. It's like. AEW, because it kind of it pulls from a very like indie feel to it. And the indies, that you can't have that kind of like that. Just that kind of body type exists, but not in the same quantity because almost like because you can't. It's very hard to maintain, first of all, because indie wrestlers don't make a lot of money. So first of all,
they can't hire like $1 million personal trainers or some shit.
They can't afford to like be able to keep their body in peak physical condition, and in addition, it's almost like a just a cycle of like if you are the kind of guy with that kind of body, you're not going to be in the indies very long anyway, because WWE's going to know, and they're going to be like, hey, want to come work for us? And the guys who are still there like are the ones that have the look that WWE passes up. So I think AEW has a lot of varied body shapes and body types because of the nature of that they are coming from a very indie kind of background. They're kind of almost a super indie, and they do not have the same desired aesthetic as WWE.
Well, the other thing too, like kind of in that vein is like there were no less than like 3 lady wrestlers of color that were like having a moment at some point or other in this show, whether that be Kyla, whether that be Big and Swole,
Yeah,
whether that be
you have Riho, who's Japanese, Nyla Rose, who is Native
Riho
American,
too. Yep.
and Big Swole is African American.
And
And you have Cody's wife Brandy, who didn't wrestle this. She's also a black woman, and she was a significant part of the episode.
Yeah, but like damn, just that casual rep, it's awesome. And I mean, I think that's part of why I latched onto Rose too, is just like just this feel of like damn, this isn't just like the same copy paste like semi body model 2013 WWE diva.
Yeah, that was very much WWE's gotten a lot better about that, but in 2013, yep.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure they have, but like from what I've seen and kind of what I associate with like modern day lady wrestling, like just based on what I've been exposed to thus far, I was like, no, this is freaking this is a freaking woman of color, a big thick woman of color in a doublet, like yes, that's different and that's awesome. And I think throughout this whole thing, it just felt like, again, it felt so welcoming to all these different types, which keeps it engaging. It keeps it from all blending together as just like a bunch of big, swole white dudes fighting. Like there's still a lot of what it is, and obviously nothing wrong with that. But they vary it up, and even the big swole white dudes all feel different. It doesn't ever feel like copy and paste or like unimportant. It's just all like it all they each have their own vibe, much more so than I think than WWE or WWF whatever has ever accomplished. And in a dignified way too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I guess the big stuff to come out of this this is kind of I guess I was also going to say is like this was our first match heavy episode. We talked about it before. This is kind of, we kind of picked an interesting point in the story, and it's almost like a mini resolution point. It's not quite. It's obviously not a resolution point in any story of this tale, because we're 10 days out from we're 10 days out from the pay-per-view. But a lot of stories and a lot of stuff comes together. A lot of stars align for the pay-per-view coming up in this one episode. You have the women's title picture is kind of crystal clear now. The kind of like the B story is the tag team title picture. Who is going to be the champions? Who's going to be the challengers? And oops, it comes out to what you'd probably most expect, but because for nothing else, it's the most dramatically interesting, where the Young Bucks are the number one contenders, and their two closest friends are the tag team champions.
It's a heel or it's a face off.
Face versus face match for sure.
And they injected a visual metaphor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because at the end of the match, like they're both Hangman and the Young Bucks are helping Kenny up, and like they briefly both tug on his arms, but the real money shot is when he backs away from them both, because he's like I'm up, don't worry about it, and like very distinctly, Kenny's in the middle, Bucks on one side, Hangman's on the other side. He's torn between two sides.
Metaphor. This is so good.
And it did a great job of kind of furthering the story I was kind of talking to you about when we started. Is it's all about, they're all technically friends, but Hangman is insecure and unsure of his own place in his friend group, and he's concerned that his own tag team partner, if it came down to it, would turn his back on him for their other friends. And you see that play out in a visual metaphor in this very episode, where Kenny is kind of this is a real Sophie's choice.
Oh my God. Yeah. And like, again, it works so well too, coming off such a good match.
Oh yeah, this was your first exposure to two of Lucha Underground's finest, Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix.
Oh my god, they were phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like what you said about Phoenix making the like physically near impossible look like easy and nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That dude freaking walked on the top rope like a tight wire in a
Mm-hmm.
way that in a way that made me feel like, I could do that. Like,
Yeah, and and ring ropes are not like taught. Some of them are but especially in the olden days, but especially now, they're not really that they're tight, but not that tight. Like that
yeah.
requires a lot of skill to be able to do that
And dude just did it with
so
ease,
easily.
like it was nothing.
And then
And
he like does these insane setups of moves. Like he does like he does a step up move where he steps onto the middle rope, then he steps up to the top rope, and then he flips out over to the outside of the ring. And he
oh
does
my
that with
god,
no effort at all.
the
It's like
flips
that's
he was able
insane.
to do, or like he got flipped over. He got flipped over. Kenny's thing at one point, and dude did a freaking backflip, and then like nothing turned around and like yeeted Kenny
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. It was some
Yeah.
move like that. And I was just sitting there like that was so fluid. That was nothing. That was done automatically.
Mm-hmm. Ray Phoenix is so fluid. Again, I don't understand how he works. I think he just decided that human physics isn't good for him, and he
Doesn't apply to him.
doesn't
Yeah.
apply to him. He doesn't need them.
Nah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you do this, dude?
Oh my. Well, I was commenting to you as we were watching it. Like that whole match, and every single person was a great show of athleticism and physicality. I mean, Pentagon obviously wasn't as crazy, but he was still a crazy high flying dude. We have wee little Kenny over here.
He can hang. He can hang with Phoenix as best as any other human being could hang with Phoenix.
Oh my God, yeah, that he just put up a strong fight in general. And what you were saying about Hangman being like the weakest athlete
He's
there.
got
If
yeah,
Hangman is the weakest athlete there, like that's still like power level well over 9,000. Especially because
absolutely.
as I remarked to you, what he lacks in show off like Phoenix has, he
Mm-hmm.
more than makes up for in just being such a strong character. Like this is a dude who does not seem to lose energy. He just keeps going, whether he's on the side of the ring, like pumping up, or like in ring, he just does not stop. Like this man seems like he has the endurance of a freaking like a mountain. Like he just holds on and does not stop.
Mm-hmm. And he kind of exists to be like also the physically strongest person in that match.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes across very well. Again, I think because they've done a really good job of constructing his characters, like this kind of like deeply like it on one hand, you know, obviously troubled soft boy, but it's so deeply brutal when he gets in the zone.
But when that's Hangman's thing, really, is that like he's a troubled soft boy who who barely, if at all, believes in himself. He's developing an alcohol problem, but like when he's locked in and ready to go, he's basically unstoppable.
I mean, Jesus, this is like speaking to the millennial race of like this is what you could be. Sure, y'all are depressed as shit and just want to drown your sorrows, but just like this motherfucker, if you get in the zone and stay there, the way you can harness all that crap for your own gain and just go to town on whatever you need to do, like it's inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
This is my version of the morality play that I subscribe to.
Yeah.
This is the character, but damn, I feel it and I'm here for it, and I want to be able to like be as strong as Hangman, and when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Like damn.
Yeah, and also we haven't even really hit the peak of that kind of energy because right now in the storyline, skipping ahead about till today,
Mm-hmm.
in November, is he's kind of at the he's kind of hit at his lowest point where obviously eventually Kenny and him lose the tag titles, and
Yeah.
Kenny is kind of taking this kind of a heel turn and of like meh, like he just doesn't really care about Hangman anymore. He kind of sees him as like kind of dead weight to him. It's like it's the Kenny show now. We're going to be the single star I'm destined to be. While Hangman's like, oh, it's okay. We're going to be a tag team together again, right? Like it hasn't quite clicked for him about this, and he's kind of hitting his like deepest points of depression and loneliness that he will come back from, and he's going to be, and I think eventually he's going to have this long-term story of like he realizes he doesn't need to depend on he needs friends, but he like doesn't need the like he is good as he is. He doesn't need the validation of anybody else, and he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need to feel inferior to anybody else. He is good enough as he is.
Oh
And
yeah.
right now we're at the low point of that, and that's very exciting. But back to February.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's in a much higher spot. At least it
mhm.
kind of feels like.
He's
Yeah.
kind of riding high as the tag team champions. Him and Kenny are getting it together. It's kind of like a story, kind of a, and I don't know how well you could appreciate it because you didn't watch the other matches. With this is like the third match between Hangman and Kenny and the Lucha Bros. But the last two matches, the Lucha Bros won both times because there was a miscommunication and Hangman would
Yeah.
hit.
They were
They
the
recap
announcers are kind
that.
of talking about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would accidentally hit Kenny, or Kenny would accidentally hit him, and like Lucha Bros would win. And but like this match, they don't have that problem at all.
Yeah. No.
They're able to kind of get it together and be the unstoppable force that they're capable of being.
Which even as someone who hasn't seen any of the stuff, just the announcers kind of name dropping that a little bit of like man, they've been struggling with communication, but like if they can pull together, they're
It's
who
home
knows
free.
who knows yeah. And I felt myself rooting for it, even just with that little bit of context. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I am into this.
And that is the best role of an announcer. If we can shortly talk about like a role of an announcer in a wrestling show,
Yeah.
that's kind of it. Like they at least in my
Mhm.
view of like what a wrestling announcer should be is they should kind of be like there to help kind of guide the audience along, especially newer viewers, of what the story is. They're like
Mhm.
not quite a narrator. I mean, I guess they kind of are if you want to look at it that way,
Mhm.
but like they're there to help kind of frame the story for viewers and kind of guide them of like where of what is going on right now, and like that
Yeah.
worked in this match is they were there to be like even for someone who'd never seen the other matches to know like okay, so the thing is that Hangman and Kenny Omega are a great tag team when they can communicate properly, and they don't always,
Yeah.
and they have to compete against a team
And they
that
do a good job at highlighting that. Yeah.
and that's contrasted with the team they're facing against who are literally brothers. There couldn't
Yeah.
be better communication between the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah, precisely. This is as communicative as it gets, folks.
Mm-hmm.
These are men who have an understanding.
Mm-hmm. And so there was that, and then I guess the C story. I'm going to save the A story for last. For the C story
Yeah.
of Moxley and Jericho was kind of a minor one, but I think it was a very fun one of
Oh yeah.
Moxley having to deal with the hired gun of Jeff Cobb, who
Yeah. Oh.
I
Oh my.
told you he's physically impressive.
Oh my God. That dude was massive.
Mm-hmm.
Like. Like. Um. Um. Luchasaurus like obviously felt like a big brawly dude, and he was super impressive. But like this guy, even without having like that same level of just like extremely distinctive like uh standout physicality, like this dude was a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he just stomped around, and it felt like a mini Andre the Giant sort of situation
Mm-hmm.
of like this is a giant that you have to fell, and it was um, and I guess I kind of figured like, man, if Moxley's getting thrown around this early in the in the match. Of course, it's gonna be played where he comes back and everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the giant slaying that Austin has told me about before, but that didn't make it feel any less cool when that turnaround did start to happen, because they did a really good job at playing it as like, this is a man that is hard to knock down, and this looks like a dude who's really hard to like make do anything or physically make do anything he does not actively want to be doing.
Mm-hmm. And you have Jericho hanging out hanging out in the front row, kind of just jeering them on as he watches his evil plan come.
Oh my god, Jericho is hysterical.
Oh, he absolutely is. As I told you, he's kind of playing like the same rock star character that he was in 2013, but WWE, and I think it's a lot of because he was like in much better physical shape. He was younger. WWE played that a lot cooler than AEW does, where there's almost this sense of like, dude, you're too old to be this like rock star.
He almost feels like a supervillain in his own right. Yeah. This kind of like pathetic, not even pathetic, dude seems terrifying. But this like petulant tantrumer, who's just going off, and you're like, dude, take a Xanax, Jesus.
Like, calm down. And that is kind of what Jericho does really well, is being like this extremely petulant, overreactive person. And to kind of skip ahead to something AEW does later in the year, I think that plays off really well. He gets in a feud with Orange Cassidy, and honestly, the best part of this feud is the fact that Orange Cassidy will do his same lazy, barely cares stuff, and Jericho just takes it as like the biggest faux pas offenses he's ever experienced, and it's hilarious contrast that he is so emotionally invested in this, and Orange Cassidy's just like, whatever.
Dude, Jericho's gonna give himself a heart attack. Well, I love too now that like Jericho's this big McLarge huge now, like just extremely swole. But he's off to the sidelines, just throwing a fit instead of like going in and doing shit himself. Like he's got his pet Rock in there to like to go and do the dirty work for him.
He has his entire group of lackeys, so he doesn't have to do any real work.
Which not to look ahead for a story I haven't even seen, but it makes it a kind of perfect matchup for Orange Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that match that was probably the one I was like the least invested in, but even toward the end, like as it started to turn around and Moxley started to like kind of get his mojo back, again, it felt like kind of the most like manufactured of the whole thing. I was like, yeah, okay, he's getting thrown around, so obviously we got to have the turnaround and slay the giant, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, the physical payoff was very sweet. Like he was pulling this man by his leg to like ram his crotch into the one of the ring poles. Like this was a dude who clearly like has a lot of strength despite like being the smaller man here relatively. Like it ended up being even if like the story I didn't find as compelling as like the other stuff in this episode, like an impressive display of strength from this man when his opponent is clearly not like helping him out in any way to BS his way through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Moxley is a badass dude, and this isn't the best episode to show that off. Just so happens to be that just happens to be how it is. But he kicks ass, and he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I can already feel that. And then having Jericho, kind of on the sidelines be all Jericho about it. That's what really lent to the fun of it. That's what really kind of brought it into a full narrative that I was like, yeah, fuck you, guy. Like chill a little bit. Your boy's gonna be fine. He's gonna lose this match. He's gonna get tossed around, but this is what you get for like just not doing the dirty work yourself, my man. I don't know what to tell you. Like it felt
yeah.
that it felt satisfying, like just for that payoff.
Mm-hmm. And then I get in the A story of this episode, and I call it the A story because it is the main event.
Oh,
Is Cody and
yes.
Wardlow, which I think follows kind of a similar path of Moxley and Cobb in that this is a giant slayer kind of a tale, but it plays it differently because Moxley and Cody are very different baby faces.
Yeah. Which, like, oh my god, that match, everything about that match, like this is one of those, this is one of those things of like just the setup and payoff of it all.
Mm-hmm.
As they, it helped. It helped a lot that you kind of like gave me a preview to like the Herculean trials through which Cody had to go through to get to this point. Um,
Which
um,
they did recap a lot of it for the matches. I didn't know they would do.
They definitely did, but
Mhm.
when I had all of that in mind, and then I saw our main players come out, like because like I had already kind of been taken in with the Darby thing that had just had of like, man, they can really make you feel stuff just by how these people look.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cody comes out, and JMF War
MJF and Wardlow.
And Wardlow. God, I can never. I'm like. It's like a name with a D in it. Wardlow. Yeah. MJF and Wardlow come out. And like these men are it plays the aesthetic so well from the get-go, from the slow drop of the cage to little dig they put in at WWE about how this is a match where you have to win by submission or by, what's the other condition?
Yeah, pinfall.
Yeah, pinfall or submission. And they're like, we WWE don't do that anymore. Like they didn't name him, drop him specifically,
right, but they
were like
how,
as it should be.
Yeah, they talk about how like more in if you've watched this, unlike you watched the cage match before, you might see that the way to win is to escape the cage, and they're like, that don't do nothing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you are in that cage until you win. And they had the announcer with his great stage presence, just standing there taking in the moment before announcing it all. And then we have our bad guys who are so good at playing it off. They're
such smarmy little shits.
In watching the things we've been watching so far, like they are, but like in watching the things we've been watching so far, I keep thinking about how corny it is to like have the heels that like have their like, play it big, play it all big and tough and gruff, but then have their moment of regret and their moment of like, oh no, my plan backfired, and like that can feel really corny. But the way they play that off here, especially at the end, with JMF just like looking,
like he looks up
no.
at Cody's like, oh my god, I actually have to fight him now.
That whole fight was practically cinematic. I mean, when we have Cody rising from the floor, that's when we really feel it. You can tell this is a man who's been put through hell, and he is here to face down the trial. Executed beautifully. Especially when we have like the clips leading up to it too, of like him being egged on and not being allowed to touch, and him getting the 10 lashes. This is his final trial before he gets what he really deserves. And just kind of, it's kind of basic and fun, like a way of when the Giant Slayer story of like, he starts off down low, and getting thrown around, but then he slowly comes back until he gets his big final move. But oh my god, that payoff just felt so worth it. And I was suckered in the whole time, and that ending,
where
so sad.
Cody
watching this man, like even
20 feet, or so they say. I don't know how high the cage actually is. They tend to make that kind of stuff up for dramatic purposes. I don't know how, but either way, he climbs to the top of the cage, and then does a moonsault off the top onto Wardlow, and
Yes.
that's what beats him.
Which kind of has a planning and payoff thing, because he climbed the outside of the cage at the beginning of the match to look out, and then at one point we have JMF kind of climbing up because he's pissed off. This was an imagery that was set up.
Yeah, of you see a couple times beforehand of people climbing the cage.
All going to do a move off of it.
Yeah. And a move that again is just so it's
the
incredible.
Payoff is so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he hits it so perfectly. Like it's not something that you can like practice doing. Not at that height.
It's art. Mm-hmm. No, that is art. That is true athleticism right there.
Mm-hmm. The other
and
big
the fact that he came out of that practically unfazed is just mwah.
Yeah. I guess the other big part of that match is I thought would be interesting to talk about is this was our first adventure in blading in a wrestling match.
Was it? I thought Captain Cactus
Jack. I don't think he bled. I don't remember him bleeding.
I thought he. Oh, okay.
I think I made a remark while we were watching that episode.
Yeah, well, I remember us talking about blading during the Captain Jack fight.
Yeah, I think I was talking about how it's weird that they aren't doing that, but.
Oh, okay.
I think this is our first time like getting to see wrestlers bleed, which I don't know if we explained it on the podcast, but I guess I'll go ahead and explain it. Okay, so one of the bigger misconceptions about wrestling, I think, when you talk about like how wrestling works, is I think some people get the idea that the blood's fake. That they'll it's tomato sauce, it's ketchup or tomato sauce or whatever, or they pop a capsule. Nope, not really. They pretty much all, not like 99.999% of wrestling blood is legit. They are legitimately bleeding. And the way they do that, is they hide a blade somewhere on their person, like a razor blade somewhere on their person. And when the time is right in the match, they will secretly cut themselves across their forehead. And so by the time they are back visible to the audience, like they're suddenly bleeding. Like it's they do this after like the big move that's supposed to cause them to bleed.
And
this was our first experience
which we did. We did get a bit of like they cut over to the other corner where we had JMF and Cody's manager going at it.
Like they
oh wait, no, that was late. No, that was later. That was later. Never mind. No, that was later.
They keep the camera like Wardlow is mouthing off to Brandy and Cody's coach on the outside of the ring. Like very clearly they pan the camera away from Cody at that point, because that's what Cody's doing, is he's cutting himself in that moment, and you can't show that.
I don't like bleeding, Austin.
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit of a weird concept to kind of think about. Like for me, it's just like, oh, that's just what they do.
No. I get very squeamish at the idea of having your skin broken by a blade. Ugh.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind for the future.
I mean, we can still watch stuff that has blading in it. I'll just be all like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when wrestlers bleed, it is like the hard way, which basically means like they didn't intentionally make themselves bleed. They just did a thing and they started bleeding because of the way they did it. But this was very obviously he obviously bladed, because they show a replay of the moment when it busted him open, and he basically Wardlow threw him into the cage, and he very clearly lands on the side of his head into the cage, but when he's bleeding from his forehead.
Yeah.
So,
which and as much as I hate to say this, I will say it does create very effective imagery, especially as that blood starts to dry and he finds his way to victory. It does make for this very effective bit of, especially when like his like pants or whatever
Mhm.
are like stark white, like,
Mhm.
and his hair is like bleached blonde. Like
Yeah,
this
the
is
the blood is seeping into his hair.
this is this is this is a splash of color that, as much as I hate to say it, for someone who intentionally made himself bleed, becomes a very effective use of their color palette.
Mhm.
And it just makes it feel all the more carnal and all the more impressive. And God, I hate that I'm basically
And
legitimizing blading
I
by
mean,
talking like this.
that's why they do it, isn't it?
I
Is
know, but I
because
don't like it.
I mean, yeah, as someone who cares for the well being of other humans, it is a little weird to be like, all right, we're gonna cut ourselves up, and like wrestlers just are just okay with this, like they just do it. It's like, oh well, part of the job.
Yep. Oh God. I, I'd love to see Orange Cassidy's version of like blading, where he just like he breaks kayfabe completely, and he's pulling out like a plastic toy knife as a gag, and he's like, "Oh, sorry guys, I thought I was supposed to be bleeding right now."
um, that would be pretty amusing. I
That's
think.
just random joke imagery. I don't know why I thought of that. I guess it was you talking about
See,
like it's
I
the job,
like
but yeah,
that's how you do it. You know, that's part of the job.
yeah.
I mean,
But anyway.
if you want to make a pun on the name, it'd be really funny if he like bled orange juice.
Yeah, dude takes out a thing of orange juice and like crushes it all over himself. Oh, I'm bleeding, guy.
And he's bleeding.
I've been shot. Um, but anyway, but yeah, I mean, even with the blading that I'm all squicky about, like, damn, what a match! Like everything about that thing was brilliantly constructed, from what was going on outside of the cage to like the cage as a visual motif, for the tides of the fight, to the setup we had, to the narrative of the fight itself, of Cody working his way from the top. And hell, we even have kind of pre-symbolism of that, of him like rising out of the floor just as he rose above the challenge. And oh my God, why is there so much visual metaphor going on? This isn't right. This is professional wrestling. It shouldn't be this smart. God damn it.
This is the episode where David realizes that wrestling can be really smart, and it's breaking him.
This is an episode where David realizes, fuck, this is better than anything I could direct in a theater. God damn it.
As John Oliver says in his own piece about WWE, wrestling is better than the things you like.
It's like, man, I wish I could come up with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm talking about this and I'm realizing all the layers. I'm like, they don't do this. You don't do this. Oh my
And I
God.
mean, I'll be honest, is that most wrestling
Oh.
doesn't, and honestly, most wrestling can't be this good because, you know, if everything could be this good, then
Mm-mm.
like this match stands
Yeah.
out. This is kind of
This
like
is this is an unparalleled match.
mhm.
This is the best match we've watched, hands down.
It's definitely the most I think narratively interesting match we've watched so far.
Mm. And just the again, it felt theatrical, it felt cinematic. This
Mhm.
was this was a triumph. And at the end, watching JMF's face as like the colored drink again, brilliant wordless acting from these people. Jesus. Like
Mhm.
like like
Cody's standing on the top of the cage, just staring down MJF because he's like,
oh my God.
you're
Oh God,
I'm
I
coming
keep
for
getting
you
his
in your name.
initials wrong.
That's the best part. I can't wait to put that in the YouTube comment in the YouTube description. But yeah, he's looking down at MJF and he's like, "I'm all right. I've passed all your
What's my
tests.
name? God.
I'm coming for you." What's
These are characters
what's
I
my name?
want to play.
And MJF is just his face of despair. He spent this whole time. He spent weeks with this cocky, arrogant, smug look on his face because he's so sure that there's no way that Cody's going to pull this off. There's no way that Cody's not going to get pissed off and just punch him in the mouth. There's no way that Cody's going to actually put up with 10 lashes across the back with a belt on live TV. And there's no way that he's going to survive a cage match with Wardlow. And yet Cody did all of it.
Oh my God. And the best part is, like, this is one of those matches where, in a way, it's a foregone conclusion. Because what the hell kind of narrative would it be if Cody lost this match, right?
Right. If Cody failed and it's like, oh, he doesn't get the match. Whoops.
But it did the thing where even going in, if it makes every lick of sense, that of course it's going to end in the hero's favor. It just feels so satisfying to get there. And I am just blown away by how effective AEW was in this whole episode, and I'm assuming how effective they are across the board at really portraying like they feel like their bread and butter is being able to distill these narrative ideas into these very like self-contained, easy to process packages that nonetheless, through their simplicity, just strike a chord with you that does not let go until that final third slap hits the ground, and victory is claimed over the slain giant. And oh my God.
And honestly, I think that is a way, that's kind of the benefit of storytelling via matches. Like AEW, even in shows where they have more, talking segments, as you might put it, they really like the idea that like the matches themselves are like important narratives of their own right, in their own right. Whereas WWE, for most of its existence at this point, is kind of the idea that like matches are a part of the story, sure, but like there's all these other parts, non-match parts that's the super, super important stuff. And AEW goes for a much simpler approach that kind of follows a lot more of a traditional wrestling kind of mold idea. That like the matches are a crucial part of the story.
And they play it, and it doesn't feel like secondary. I think a big thing too is like, we talked about WWE where all the drama happens and people solve it by punching. Like this, for the first time in a while, like we've had glimpses of this before, with things like the with some of the Lucha Underground segments, and with like Hulk Hogan coming to save Randy Savage from like the evil the evil injustice that was taking place. This was every little bit. The fighting was the narrative, and it felt deeply important to the narrative, and none of it felt secondary. None of it felt unneeded. None of it felt extraneous. It just all was there as part of this large series of vignettes that, taken together, made just for an epic night of fighting. Especially as again, it evolved for me from okay, this feels like I'm watching a real sport, that's cool, into this is a damn movie. And
every match felt different. Every match told a different story in its own way.
Like, oh my God, I thought we were gonna be over here like just talking about like, hey, it's just a lot of fighting, and here's kind of what we saw in the fighting, or like, hey, we got to watch our first cage match. That was cool. I ain't never seen a cage match before, even though I always. But no, this was well constructed entertainment.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a highly regarded episode of AEW, I think, for a very good reason.
And like you were saying, sorry, before I cut you off, about every match felt different too. This was not a thing of things blending together. This was a series of all important stories that all needed to be told, and all were executed wonderfully.
Absolutely. And so I think that covers I mean, we've been out for an hour and a half of
Dang.
I think that's the longest we've done the back half before.
It hasn't felt like that. Like I'm just over here gushing about this thing.
Oh yeah, like
oh my
like
god.
it has not felt like it's been an hour and a half. I'm just like looking at the recorder. I'm like, oh, that's how long we've been doing this. But absolutely fantastic show, and very glad that we got to do this for episode 5.
And you know what? I'm gonna do a thing that I haven't done yet. Hey, you listening? Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. AEW airs weekly on TNT. Go freaking watch it. This is good stuff.
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Please go watch. Do yourself a favor. Go watch some AEW because this stuff is gold. This is as far as I'm concerned, a golden age in its infancy. And I think if any of you out there are listening to this and are curious and like have not yourselves watched wrestling and are curious as to what this is all about and all this weird stuff we've been talking about, this is the way to introduce yourself to it. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Go watch AEW, please. I'm begging you.
Well, next week is going to feel like such a letdown in comparison.
I don't care. This was so good.
Yeah.
If we go downhill a little bit, that'll be a fun thing to talk about in its own right.
I agree.
But damn, this was good.
But yeah, so our next episode is, I've already kind of figured this out. Is we have a bit of a rotation now. I think of 5 different topics, and I kind of like sticking to it.
Okay, I can roll with that.
So I guess we're going to go back to WWE in the contemporary age, and
alrighty.
And I don't know exactly what episode. I'm debating between 2 episodes in the same 3-week period, because I feel like when you're talking about contemporary WWE storylines, and by contemporary I'm defining that to mean, well, I guess this episode's in 2011. That's a little later than I'm thinking, but contemporary enough. Is the story of, I guess, a little sneak peek, the story of CM Punk, and where he has a match for the WWE Championship, but his contract's running out and he's threatening to leave the company with the title hostage.
Oh no.
And this is kind of like and it's a great storyline for the time that it happens, and I feel like we got to cover it. So
that could be fun. Alrighty, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and so we're gonna touch on that. We're gonna go all the way back to 2011 next time.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. Please go watch AEW. Kyler Rose, please step on me. And I promise I'm done. I'm done now. Until next time we watch AEW.
Until next time, subscribe to us on YouTube. Smash that like button. Yes, I finally said
ring that bell.
Ring that bell.
Oh, we can be found on. We're on Twitter now. Go follow us at Noobs N Knox Pod on Twitter.
Yep.
We've commissioned a shiny new logo, channel art. So be on the lookout for that. Very excited for that to come out.
And very soon we will be on Spotify and everywhere else that you listen to podcasts with your ears.
Oh my God, my friends, you are Noobs and Knockouts is just hitting its stride. Stay tuned, because we got a lot of damn good content coming your way.
Absolutely. But until then, talk to you later.